a trip to Insanity Island.
Nope.
Oh, we're live. We're live. It is Insanity Island. It's insane. First of all, big apology to all of our massive fans out there for being
Insanity
absolutely
Island.
Woohoo! Woo, woo, woo. It is April 10th, 2023 in the year of our Lord. Okay. So a lot of topics to discuss. Let's go right into it. We've got a very good panel here. We've got Pendo. We got Dr. Todd. We got Richard. We got all kinds of crazy people. And here we go. The Trump indictment. Okay. The Trump. Now, okay. Question. I have a question. Is it now obvious, super obvious, that the Department of Justice and the court system are being weaponized against conservatives? I ask you, Chris Pendarvis.
No, they have been weaponized for quite a few years. Starting back in the Obama days, when he sicked the IRS after anybody conservative.
Susan Burke, wasn't that her name? The head of the IRS at the time?
And she failed up. I remember she got a promotion because that's what should happen to you when you do that to the American people, you know, especially when you're a left-leaning lunatic like her. And so, no, this has been going on for years. It's just they're like in your face now. It's like, yeah, we're doing that. Yeah, we're coming after you, parents. Yeah, we're the FBI. We don't like you anymore, American parents. That's what they do. And that's the freaking country that we're in right now.
It's obvious to you. It's obvious to me. But, Todd, I want to pivot to you for a moment. Is it obvious to Biden voters? Are they willing to accept the reality that the court system, the justice system are now just blatantly targeting conservatives?
No, because it's masked under Trump. You know what I'm saying? They think it's a Donald Trump thing. They miss the broader thing. They think he deserves it, so they can rationalize this as just a long overdue, indictment of someone who could have been busted for a million things. So they let that slide. The bigger issue, though, that I think we all need to look at when you use the broader ask of are they targeting conservatives? They're targeting outsiders, most notably businessmen that don't come from the establishment, that have more to lose, businesses who are more prone to be the next Donald Trump, who says, I don't need any of you. Let's say Mark Cuban flipped and became more conservative, right? This is a deterrent to them because they have pasts, they have ownership. If you're an establishment politician, you're so a part of it. They're not going to crack those. You follow? So this is what they're laying the groundwork for. And those people mostly come out of the Republican base of a business, right? That's the thing that I think they're really doing. But yet the base for the Democrats doesn't see that. Further, they don't give a shit about small business anyway, right? They're so blindly following this big governmental dynamic that they don't really see it. They can't even see it.
That is a great point. Richard, you've been involved in politics since your teenage years, so that would be decades. Do you think that, to Todd's point, he's got a lot of experience. To Todd's point, do you think there is an organized effort by the leadership of the Democratic Party to send a message to entrepreneurs, capitalists, and say, look, don't go down this path of Trump. Don't get involved in politics, because if you do, we're going to punish you and punish you severely. Do you think that's the message they're trying to?
Well, I do. I think it actually goes beyond that. I think it also stems into the media, so that you have even supposed, business channels attacking business leaders. And if you come out like Elon Musk has, for example, in favor of free speech, he gets blistered. Then you also have government agencies like I'm not talking about a few that have relatively little power. I mean the IRS, I mean the FBI and the CIA. all of these are being weaponized against conservative groups. So, for example, recently the head of the FBI, Ray, was sitting before a House panel and was being asked about
Christopher Ray, you're talking of Atlanta.
correct. The fact that it's come out that the FBI had a concerted effort to infiltrate the Catholic Church, and in particular because of their pro-life positions, and also were infiltrating conservative pro-life groups for no other reason other than the fact that they were opposed to what the Biden Department
What they were saying, their messaging.
Yeah, I mean that they were doing crazy things like praying outside abortion clinics. I mean,
No, Richard. No, Richard. The FBI had a really good reason to go after the Catholics. The Catholics were actually feeding the poor, and the FBI is not going to have that crap.
I know it's pathetic.
They're just not having it.
So Richard, you know, if the four of us on this panel can see it, okay, why can't one Biden voter see it? Answer that question for me.
They don't care. They actually approve of the fact that you had an FBI, you know, squad with weapons and Kevlar and rifles that showed up and raided a home of a pro-life pastor who all his was guilty of was praying in a clinic, and they aren't bothered by that. Now, there is, I think, a lot of injustice that takes place on the part of the government towards people. I think the conservatives should be more mindful of when it happens to people who don't necessarily call themselves conservatives. But on the other hand, you cannot say that the DOJ, for example, has come down hard on the whole, you know, January 6th crowd, yet turned a blind eye to Antifa.
Yeah, but Richard, usually whenever the FBI is coming down or the cops are coming down on any other group, it's because they're breaking the freaking law. They're coming down on us because of how we think.
That's true.
That's a huge difference.
I agree with that. And frankly, to be honest, the January 6th people kind of deserve to have, I think, at least, you know, have to have their day in court. On the other hand, just because you think pro-life,
and they let go that main guy, by the way, at the horns.
They did. I know.
They finally let him out
because those tapes were released, but that's a whole other topic.
Well, exactly, which is another example of suppressing speech and messaging, right?
Yeah, they suppress truth, is what they say.
Right, exactly, suppressing the truth.
But in any case, I think Todd's point of how that the deep state, call it whatever you want to call it, has been aligned against conservative thought is scary. It's scary because they are not looking to simply debate in the public forum. They are looking to punish, intimidate, and you know, jail. You know,
it's called Marxism.
Tim, let me give you an example. Your root of your question was, how can not one person see it on their side? And here's the example I'm going to give you. If your dad had a mortal enemy with the restaurant, and somehow the cops went in and busted for some minor infraction that you knew every restaurateur did, he would probably stand up against that because he goes, I'm doing it too. And if even though he's putting my competitor out of business, they could just as easily come for me, unless you feel that you're a part of the insulation. Like he knows he's got the sheriff in his hip pocket. That's the way they feel. So they'll let them, even though they know they're victims and like, what's the word? Hypocrisy. They're part of the hypocrisy. They're doing the same things that are happening. They feel they're insulated, so they don't call it out. Like, you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's
okay.
like they feel like, even though they're like, shit, they intellectually do know it's a slippery, like freedom of speech, right? They want to.
But I mean, that's a great point, I think, because, you're insulated from it. And also someone goes after your father and they kind of all collectively, it's collectionism or group think. They don't want to turn against each other because they're all one, and they're very good at that. Whereas we're more individual minded and we think more like individuals. So
the tax evasion thing. Everyone knows when you're at Trump's level of any kind of income, everyone has all the games. Trump said that in some quote. He goes, we all do that stuff. They speak out about the very things that they do knowing that they're insulated from the same laws. That's the scary part of this entire thing. So when you say it, they don't feel the pinch because they are literally like insulated, like a marker that they have, like a D on their forehead.
Well,
I tell you what the problem is. I
what-
fix the whole problem. Right now, Washington, D.C. is a one-party system. Until it gets to not be.
Yeah.
That's it.
Either party. But a third party would be very difficult.
No. I'm saying a one party. The Republicans don't even have a presence in Washington.
Not really.
They're not even there.
Not really. Very
They
few.
don't represent the city
Are few
or the
people.
people in it. You know.
The reason this cycle feels different, we've seen these kind of cycles before, where the Democrats take over and okay, but we've never seen a cycle like this where the hypocrisy is so overwhelming when it comes to weaponizing justice and when it comes to suppressing freedom of speech, which is suppressing the truth. And that's why this one feels so much different. So, ask your fathers, our fathers have seen cycles like this, but they've never seen so much suppression of the truth as well as the weaponizing of the court system. It's so obvious.
That's because politics used to end at the shore, and that was the old saying that politics ended at the seashore. In other words, we kept it in the family. Not anymore. Half the country wants to destroy the country. So,
well, you also have. I mean,
it's been like Europe, no doubt about it.
You have leaders who get away with murder, literally in some cases. Then you have other leaders like Christopher Wray.
Quit talking about Hillary.
When you're asked, when you're asked about why has the FBI attempted to infiltrate the Catholic Church, you seriously mean to tell me that if the Trump, FBI tried to infiltrate whoever, like whoever it was, much less a religious organization, that there would not be a massive uproar, that there would not be nightly news shows on it, that there wouldn't be congressional hearings that were broadcast?
Hey, Richard, they'll do that whether it's true or not anyway.
But Christopher Wray's just allowed to say, yeah,
Richard,
I was surprised by that, just like you were.
Richard,
I'll look into it.
Why is the media now? The media, let's face it, and I think this is a universal truth when I say this: we do not have a state-run media. This isn't Russia. This isn't Cuba. This isn't China. We have an independent, capitalism-based media. Okay.
NPR.
Why is our independent media so in lockstep with this whole movement, suppression of freedom of speech, weaponizing the justice system? Why do you think? Why is that?
I don't even know, because the Hunter Biden story would be a gift from God. If you were like in journalism school in 1958 and someone hypothetically throw out in your career, you're going to have the opportunity to break Hunter Biden, they'd come in their pants. Like, you're kidding me.
Oh my gosh.
So Tim, that's a journalist dream.
A career making event.
Yes. And the fact that no one, it's like, who do they have pictures of? Whose nuts do they have in a vice? These are like, right?
Why is that?
I don't know.
Is that? I think that's the big head scratcher among conservatives, is that if the general population just knew the truth, they would lean towards how we feel. But the media isn't reporting the truth. Richard, why do you think that is?
I think that they profit from it as individuals. I think that they also have their own agendas. They clearly taint their reporting. I mean, that's at this point just beyond dispute.
But to Todd's point, the Hunter laptop thing should be a story of a lifetime. Why won't they pursue that?
Well, some of them have, and then some are summarily been fired. I forgot the lady's name, but there was a
reporter. How deep does this go? That the most obvious. And then we would say, okay, what's that business motivated by? Like everything, money, right? Advertisers. The only thing I can think of is that they're in cahoots with like the drug companies, though, because the ratings for CNN are a colossal joke. The mathematics does not play out that they should even be a viable entity. And by the way, when you watch Fox versus CNN, you see the vitamin commercials, Sebastian Gorka on the fucking pain meds or whatever, and then you see these heavyweight announcers on the other side that I think they basically say, you guys cover this, we'll cover your costs, meaning we'll get these people to advertise. It
It could be.
Because the ultimate motivation used to be eyeballs. I'm going to sell a ton of copies. I'm going to have everyone tuned in. The OJ thing, you can go
They
on.
overpay for the ads.
But in the Hunter
They
Biden
just-
thing,
They
they're
just
like,
overpay.
you got your money covered. Don't worry about ratings. Suppress the ratings because that's not what we're going to get you paid. We'll get you paid.
It
It's gotta be
could,
something like
it
that.
could be. It makes no sense. I'm going to pivot to the media thing. Why that media doesn't act independent, even though they are. Budweiser, for example. Okay, Budweiser is an independent company. It's not a state-owned operation. It's owned by the shareholders. Recently, came out with a new campaign. Okay, Budweiser has a new campaign. And the new campaign features a boy dressed as a girl, okay? And she or he or whatever it is now the spokesperson for, Budweiser and media, and the new media person in charge of all this at Budweiser is a new executive there, and she feels she needs to take the Budweiser brand in a different direction. Well, she certainly has taken a different direction, no doubt about it. Is this good for the shareholders or bad for the shareholders? I would think it would be bad. Why would the board of directors of Budweiser go along with this insane campaign that goes against their core audience? Ask you, Richard Sheffield.
Well, funny you should bring that up because the let me, if I can, sort of bring up.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Richard, to bring that up. And also, Richard, when did you join a 1980s rap group?
My favorite
Richard
artist.
James, yo.
My favorite artist.
Hey, there she is. The new trans star for Budweiser.
So she.
Yeah, but-
Okay, so let me answer your question, Tim. There was actually, as it's come out, that no pun intended, as it has been discovered, prior to this particular marketing campaign decision, the Bud Light marketing vice president, I might have her title slightly wrong, but she's the Bud Light vice president of marketing.
She's a new hire.
Alyssa Heiderschneid.
It's Germanic.
Heinerschneid, I think is how you say her name. She came out in this podcast prior to this decision being made to support and hire Dylan Mulvaney. She came out and said that the brand has been in decline. It's been in decline for a really long time, and if we don't attract young drinkers to come and drink this brand, there'll be no future for Bud Light. She went on to say that their history was what she called fratty marketing that was oriented towards basically good old boys, which I don't know.
The people that buy the beer.
Well, first of all, the reason Bud Light consumption has gone down is because of the craft beer movement.
Thank you.
And Budweiser did buy a craft beer called Wicked Weed beer out of Asheville, North Carolina. It's a huge brand. Wicked Weed beer is really good. They have several different brands underneath that brand of craft beer. That's why Bud Light conversation has come down, not because of the advertising, but
and the seltzers
and the seltzers. I do think that this would hurt Budweiser and their sales.
It has.
There's a lot of boycotts for it right now, but so Todd, do you think that this will help cure wokeism among corporations? See what a backfire this is, or do you think they won't stop? They'll just keep going with this crazy wokeness, like what we're seeing from Budweiser.
I think there's a lot of markers that would say these are the tail ends of what we will look back and laugh. If we were to do this podcast 5 years from now, these would be markers when we will laugh. Do you remember when Budweiser did this? Like the disaster of New Coke. And normally they say no PR or bad PR is better than no or whatever. At the end of the day, they're not in the PR business. They have to sell the product. And you have people outright banning the product, refusing, So I don't see how
distributors are coming out really hard against him as well. That was
and then the part where this goes. So my thing is, I personally think the thing that just I don't see how this passes the kind of the smell test is the numbers of the demographic. If they said we have to reach this demographic, okay, that that demographic is qualified and has huge numbers by anyone who's going for that. The trans people, if every single trans people had 50 cases a day, it wouldn't move a needle there for shit.
Exactly.
Like if we were in a room of advertising execs and said, this is the demographic. So Todd, have you researched it? Yeah, I thought I did. How many are in that demographic? 15 people. They'd laugh you out of the room.
Right, exactly. I mean, it just makes no sense from a business standpoint. It makes no sense.
And you're going to put down fratty people? That's your customer base.
That's your customer.
Every one of them by saying
it's young males. Young males. I mean, that's
young males in college.
All males. I mean, all males like to drink beer. Males drink beer more than women. And, for them to come out against straight men, I mean, right in your face, I mean, it just makes
no
sense. But it just makes sense.
It's not smart. What they did was take what should have been, and even you could argue this, what should have been a broader attitudinal internal policy on tolerance, let's say. We need to get and hire more, something like that. But they did it through their own product, which is suicide.
Yeah.
That was just, you know what I mean?
And they just let her do that. She just came in and did it.
Yeah. I think it'll hurt. I think it'll hurt. So speaking of freedom of speech, and that's one of the pillars that seems to be under attack right now. There was an athlete, a female athlete, who went to go visit a school and make a speech because she was invited to go there, and she made this speech. And during the speech, she starts getting shouted out of the room to the point she had to stop and leave and go in a hallway where they followed her, threatened her, got violent with her. She had to be locked in a room for 3 hours. Okay,
Riley Gaines is her name.
There you go. Exactly. Richard, what do you think of that incident? And do you think that she was right to come out and be very critical of that episode afterward?
So I think it's important to point out that the reason that she was there to speak in the first place had to do with the fact that she was advocating for women's sports. That is to say, biological women to be able to compete fairly and not against biological men who are identifying as women. And that she was saying this isn't fair to women and women's sports. And there's actually a growing movement that is calling for that. And so
Richard, every single thing you just said is transphobic. I'm offended.
Well, it's
everything.
It's this is her. This is Riley. You guys can see.
Yes.
So anyway, so all that to say is that's why she was there in the first place. So it wasn't like she was going there to condemn.
Feminists should support this, right? Liberals should support it.
She was not there to condemn
women's rights.
She was not there to speak out against trans people. She was not there to speak out, against anything other than to say women should be able to compete against women when it comes to sports. I mean, that's insanely.
By the way, she was assaulted 3 times.
Yeah, so
they got physically violent with her.
A man in a dress beat the crap out of her, and then they kidnapped them, and then basically held them hostage, and were laughing about how much money they were going to charge them. That's like 4 felonies right there.
Yeah, San Francisco.
But yeah, nothing will happen to those. I mean, has anything happened to those people?
No, she's suing those. She's going to sue.
No, the university, the San Francisco State University actually came out and applauded
the protest.
Applauded it by saying that they appreciate the their student body for coming out.
I'd sue them into oblivion. I would sue them into freaking oblivion.
I think she's got a good case.
I would take everything from them. Everything.
I mean, so once again, the hypocrisy. Here she is speaking for women's rights, and correct me if I'm wrong, but her point is, look, we don't mind competing against all women, any kind of women. We just don't want to compete against biological males who dress or claim to be a woman and then compete against us. Was that her main point, Dr. Todd? Was that her main point she was trying to make?
Absolutely. And, Caitlyn Jenner is one of the biggest advocates for this.
Yeah.
So that says it all right there.
That says it all right there.
The world's greatest athlete who.
Hey, you know what? Caitlyn Jenner is just a transphobe person. Hater. She's a hater. She hates people.
I have a question, though. It'll probably take us down, and you can just move off it, but let people ponder. Aren't these people working for someone? How deep does this thing go? You're telling me they're this outraged?
It sure does look like.
I think his name is George.
It looks like it's being consolidated, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like it's like organized.
They just show up and they protest.
It's that outrageous that you feel organized.
Yeah.
George Soros is certainly at the top of the list as being one of the main funders of all this. I mean, look at all the district attorneys' offices. They're all insane. And it's George Soros is doing the main funding behind all of these cities with these district attorneys, these mayors.
George Soros,
so far left.
He's a lot more evil than you think he is. When he was a kid in Nazi Germany, he was one of the Jews that would point out to the Germans what Jews screwed up or whatever.
Or were hiding and that kind of stuff.
Or that were hiding.
He's
an evil man.
Actually Hungarian, but
he's pure evil. Well, he's Jewish too.
Right. He's a Hungarian Jewish person.
And he was one of the people in the uniforms that would be working, like when the Jews came in and they would have a person there in like a uniform that was Jewish. He was one of them.
You talking about to help identify Jewish people to the Nazis?
Or to tell on them in the camps.
If you ever seen the movie the Pianist,
yes, that's a great movie.
It is a great movie, and there's a scene in it where there's one of inside the ghetto, the Warsaw ghetto, the Nazis had employed certain Jewish people to become policemen, and effectively, frankly, I don't. Although I know quite a lot about World War II and quite a lot about the Warsaw ghetto, I don't know enough to know that like they were all evil. I mean, there very well could have been. I don't know. Hypothetically, there could have been some good people that just were wearing uniforms, helping do other things, directing traffic.
Well, the survivors of that war would take those people that jumped to the other side to inform. They'd shave their heads in public, and urinate on them in public to totally humiliate them and let them know, hey, we know what you did, we know who you are, and you turned against us.
Anyway, that's Soros. That is Soros.
And that is Soros.
That's who he is.
A lot of people do claim that Soros identified Jews to the Nazis. I mean, that's a pretty well reported thing. We can talk about the evils of it or not, but he started off doing some things that you could be considered, off track. And now he's purposely funding cities where more people will die.
Yeah,
I think Rich said it. They're trying to tear down America, and he's effectively funding it with like a reverse guardian angels, right? Instead of doing good, he's got this like vigilante group funded by him that is effectively doing whatever these high people say to do.
Except vigilantes would go in and take out the bad guys when the police.
No, I'm saying it's a reverse guardian.
He's a reverse. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, reverse. Exactly. It's like negative. Like, yeah, exactly. They would do good in a vigilante. These are bad vigilante. Yeah.
Let's go against the people that want to obey the law and live by the rule of law. Let's go against those people. Just like how New York is spending what some estimate to be hundreds of millions of dollars on this Trump indictment when they have literally the worst crimes seen in the streets in New York City since the 1970s.
Yeah, but those people in New York had it coming because they live in New York. So
well, speaking of liberal run cities and bad things happening, so the founder of Cash App, okay, this guy was a highly successful tech executive,
Was he
billionaire. I believe a billionaire. He his companies were in San Francisco. He moved out of San Francisco to somewhere else, but he had to be in San Francisco for a board meeting or something. He was only going to be there for a couple of days. Stabbed to death, and he's crying.
But I have a question
for help. No,
I have a question, Tim. He was out at 2:45 in the morning in San Francisco getting a sandwich. Are you sure he wasn't setting up a fake hate crime?
Well, and
it went wrong.
I don't think so.
The guy tripped and stabbed him a couple of times.
Do you think though that this will finally be enough for make people to realize, okay, we have to get our city safe, or will it have no effect at all? Richard?
I mean, your question is not even worth answering, Tim. It's,
no.
I don't know if it's rhetorical or not, but of course not. It's, ironically, the San Francisco DA said, I will fully prosecute this person if we find them to the fullest extent of the law. Whereas she's also not fully prosecuted all the other people that have been stabbed and attacked and robbed and mugged in New York and San Francisco. So, it's all for show. It's not the stabbing part, but it's, if anyone stands up and says, yeah, we're definitely opposed to, tech moguls getting stabbed to death in our street. I believe that because San Francisco has lost so many businesses who have moved out of San Francisco. But at the same time, it's just so disingenuous for
why do the residents of these cities keep voting for this crap? I mean, look at Chicago.
They leave.
Chicago just elected the most left-wing, super far left mayor in its history, when its current mayor couldn't win her primary and dropped out because of the crime. Then they went even worse in terms of a leader that would be effective in doing something about the crime. Why can't these people learn? I mean, what is it about going further and further left has so many people in the cities intoxicated with the socialist movement? I ask you, Todd.
Because they realize their goal is about power, not about fixing things. But to your question, Tim, when it gets so bad, you think even the people who are involved in the crap are going to be like, when are we going to fix this? But when they've already outed their boogeyman is basically Trump and racism, they're willing to be peed on and told it's raining, because they can pivot the real issues and just talk to trying to fix things and never do it. So they basically have trained and will vote in these leftists because they believe they're anchored to only one thing: is the right is evil and white. They've sold that racism narrative. We're not that. That's all they have to be, is not that. They don't have to fix. This is kind of Candace Owens' thing. They brainwash you thinking this is as good as it's going to get. And even if when you get a little pee on you, that's just rain. Do you follow? So Fair enough. Exactly. They almost expect this. It's us who reacts and says, when is enough? And all they have to do is to be like, well, at least it's not Donald Trump. At least it's not the white. And that's their boogeyman. So that's the alternative to them. So they keep voting in what they're comfortable with, which is actually horrific stuff, but they're comfortable with horrific.
Fair enough.
And I don't think that many of them are pathetic.
How do you explain, despite 4,000 people a year getting shot in Chicago, who they just elected for mayor?
Well, everything Todd said is accurate, but what you can do is sum it up with they're fucking idiots. They're just idiots. They're stupid people.
Okay.
I'm not kidding about this.
Okay.
The sad part, Chris, is they know it. And that to me is, I always kind of an anti-bullying thing. And that's like bullying, like keeping them down. And that's the part I think is so damn sad. You're right. And they should try to make them better.
So for us to try to rationalize it is just, you might as well just give up. It's like trying to explain how the universe is ever expanding. It's unexplainable, but it is. Is it one of those kind of things? Like they're literally so stupid, or something in their brains aren't connecting properly, and you just can't explain it. You can't rationalize it. You can't even begin to understand it.
It's simple. We live in a world of 105ers. Those are the average. That's the average IQ. The average person is 105.
But wouldn't even a 105er not like getting hit over the head with a brick? And,
I mean, dude, that's like 15 points ahead of Forrest Gump. Is the average person?
Okay.
But back to Tim's point,
I'll always be puzzled by it. You know, because we all know a lot of smart people that voted Biden.
Okay, Tim.
I don't know anybody smart.
We know them, and they still won't admit that having a trans for the Budweiser spokesman is wrong. They still won't admit the Trump indictment was wrong. They still won't admit the raid on the Mar-a-Lago was wrong. They still won't admit the 2 impeachments was wrong. They just want to admit, and these are smart, intelligent.
Dude, these are
we all know.
There's still people out there that think that Russia
beyond the 105er.
The Russia collusion thing still exists.
Still exists. Okay. The Biden family crime syndicate is alive and well. So
yeah, way to go, Richard.
Yeah, way to go, Richard. Way to be part of the Biden crime family. Way to go.
Way to go.
So Ted Cruz has a weekly podcast. Okay. In his last podcast, he lays out just a mountain of evidence of why, at the very least, there should be a special prosecutor named to at least look into, how has so much money poured in the pockets of the Biden family through ill-gotten gains, and no one seems to care. So the latest evidence is Whitey Bulger. Okay, so for people in our audience who don't know who Whitey Bulger is one of the largest mafia dons ever to come out of South Boston, maybe the biggest in the history of South Boston. There was a movie made on him, loosely based upon him. Well, not loosely, but starring Jack Nicholson, called The Departed. A lot of people saw it. There's been a lot of movies, a lot of documentaries made about this mafia guy. Well, anyway, his nephew, okay, it has been released that Whitey Bulger's nephew is on the logs of visiting the White House when Joe Biden was vice president to meet with Hunter Biden 14 times. Okay. Why does Whitey Bulger's nephew need to be with Hunter Biden 14 times? I ask you, Richard Sheffield.
Richard?
Richard,
Hey,
you need to turn off your mute button, Richard.
Did you do it accidentally, Tim?
I was
Okay.
Oh, there you are. You're back.
There you go.
Welcome back.
Tim muted me.
Did you hear my question?
Way to
I
go,
did.
Tim.
I did hear your question. And
Why would that be necessary, do you think, for our country's good, for Hunter Biden to meet with Whitey Bulger's nephew 14 times in the White House?
Is to coordinate their Chinese business ventures. Yeah.
There you go.
He doesn't just go to the White House because he has an interest in American history or antique furniture. He's there for business reasons.
What about art lessons?
So why isn't there a district attorney or a special prosecutor or someone going after this story?
You got to be kidding, Tim.
They're too busy chasing Catholic pro-life people, is why.
Well, now, what would a Biden voter say about this, and would they care, Richard?
I think they look at this and say, this is all a big nothing burger. I think that's sort of the attitude towards it. There's a dismissal. They would look at this, I think, and justify it the same way that, and I'm not saying that this is equal, but the same way that you would dismiss the Trump Russia collusion, you would dismiss the
but there's a reason to dismiss that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. You asked me a question. I'm just giving you the answer. I mean, I think that they would look and go, this is politics. This is people just trying to take down Biden.
Yeah, but theirs isn't.
Give me a break. I mean,
It's
who doesn't do this?
It's corruption at its highest level, and
I'm answering
why they don't care. Which, by the way, to show what a farce this whole Trump indictment is, okay? The day Trump was indicted, the very exact same day, Stormy Daniels was ordered by a judge to pay back Donald Trump $200,000 because it was a phony claim. Yet that's what Trump's being indicted for.
There's a lot of reasons why it's bullshit. He doesn't have jurisdiction. It's not a state crime. It's a federal crime. There's no crime. There's like 50 reasons why it shouldn't exist, but it does because this is the world we live in. That Bud Light would have a little boy that thinks he's a little girl as their spokesman and think that'll work. That Star Wars would replace Luke with a girl and everybody would go, yay, that's great. Yeah, I love that. Yay. And, and they didn't. So
I do.
So screw Biden, screw Disney.
But Richard, do you think now that this new evidence has come to light, do you think this will finally be enough for Hunter Biden to at least be investigated regarding corruption? Not necessarily indicted, but at least investigated.
Investigated by who?
Yeah, they're investigating
by
him now.
Anyone.
They're investigating him now.
I think that there will be
a city, the federal, by anyone.
I think there'll be congressional investigations. And I think the congressional investigations will make recommendations to the DOJ.
Yeah, and then the DOJ will ignore it.
Say, thank you very much for that. It'll go into, a
vault,
circular filing cabinet, and that'll be the end of it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's just, the hypocrisy and the corruption just seems to.
Well, right now there is an investigation on him right now in the House. There is an investigation. You know why they did that?
For congressional investigation, but then
but you know why they did that, don't you? They did that, and the DOJ did that just so the press secretary can say, "Well, I can't speak on this. That's an ongoing investigation."
And
we're not going to come up with anything.
Yeah, talk on that, and the media just never reports it. The media never talks about it. Let's talk about it. Okay, so
Sam, real quick, just because the root one of your questions was. Do they care? Does the Democrat voters, the Biden voter care? And the answer is so emphatically no, and I'll tell you why. I should know more on this because it's such an interesting, funny story. The guy we all know is a career politician. He's never worked in the private sector, so there's no other source of income, right? That's legal. How can you just use the most tangible thing that everyone knows? Home ownership. The guy owns like 4 homes to the tune of about $80 million all in. He doesn't have enough income to cover the fucking property tax. You just pointed out that blatant and say, can you explain it? Here's what I'll tell you right now. You do it in a bar. Everyone will say this. Speaking engagements and book tours. You're like, great, let's talk about that book. How much do you think he could possibly get in the signing bonus? 10 million? I'll take that after taxes. He's still not at the property tax. Keep going. Next one. Literally, so to your point, they don't even care. They'll just get frustrated.
I don't think he's written a book that is sold.
No, he hasn't. And guess what? Exactly. And you see my point. They won't. You can play them right into the math, and they will not go, God, that's a good point. They will not do that. They'll go, well, I don't know. It's got to be something. And that's the most brazen thing, right under everyone's nose. House at the Cape. Hey, there's like 4. You can't hide that.
What she rented to Hunter Biden for $49,000 a month.
Joe Biden hasn't written a book because he doesn't know how to write in subtitles.
Right.
But he can finger paint and sell a painting for $800,000.
Have you guys ever see last thing here? You ever see these American Greeds or whatever? These people who get busted for like embezzlement. They do their first couple, and then it starts to go through, and then it gets to be this preposterous amount. Everything that we're talking about starts with the Democrat. We're like, hey, welcome to the Democratic Party. Hey, you got busted for DUI? Give me that. And it goes away. And they're like, holy shit. It starts with this flywheel, and they realize how much the air cover is, and they literally start getting so brazen it's preposterous. Look at the Pelosi's, look at the Bidens. They
It
just
starts slow, it
They'll-
starts small, it goes bigger, 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 and now they're just huge.
no,
But,
next thing you know,
Todd, the scary part about it is no one's stopping them. I
That's
mean,
right.
it's
And
just steamrolling.
that's what is so appalling to me. Joe Biden would buy a $30 million house on the courthouse steps in a public auction and put it right in front, or $100 million.
And no one's saying anything.
And no one's like, dude, you just paid $100 million. Do you
The
understand
whole
how
media
many
would
I don't
just
know
be
about?
silent.
Exactly.
The media would just be
That's
silent.
the brazenness of their belief in this air cover. Like, what? I don't know when that ends.
The media is the air cover, and why? It's the biggest, strangest thing. Why is the independent media providing them this air cover?
That's a 60-minute story right there.
They're the useful idiot.
Property values. Obama's the same thing, by the way, and we can keep going or go on.
We could keep going now. To go ahead and cycle through this to get to the final thoughts and predictions. We had some shootings, some very tragic shootings. One in Louisville, today's in Tennessee. That horrible shooting by that, again, another transvestite situation. Transvestite went in, shot at these 6 of them, these purely innocent people at a school.
Oh.
And there were people interviewed afterward, like, these gun control people, whatever, will you denounce her? Will you say she's bad? And they all said no, and they blamed the guns. I mean, it's just, crazy.
Hey,
But
hey, those little kids had it coming because Jesus is mean.
well, wow, it happened at a Christian school. I mean, and just a horrible event.
These people are evil.
Kamala Harris went to Tennessee to speak about this.
Didn't say a word.
Okay, she didn't go to the school and denounce the gunman and said we need to be doing something about these criminals. No. She went to the Tennessee Congress and spoke against how these 3 freshman Democrat congressmen were all dismissed because they were speaking out about this event. They were using this event for major gun control legislation. They were speaking out of turn. They were not following decorum.
They were having an insurrection.
They were removed, and
They
Kamala
should have
Harris
been
wants to
arrested
spend her
and put in
time
jail for 4
talking
years.
about them being removed. So, Richard, what do you think that will hurt if Kamala Harris is again the vice president? Do you think an event like that would hurt her chances of being reelected, or not at all?
No, it doesn't hurt her with her base or with the Democratic Party base. It actually helps her, I think, in some respects. I do think it was I don't really understand why the Tennessee legislature did what they did.
Because they were speaking out of order. They weren't following the law.
It wasn't just that.
Yeah,
They seized power over the proceedings and wouldn't allow the proceedings to continue.
I'm not saying they were behaved well.
All right, your ass has to fucking go.
I'm telling you, I think it was, my opinion is it was a dumb political move because why? These 2 people are already going to be reinstated by their local commissioners.
All right, let them do it.
And they're going to be sworn in again. They've already basically the chairman or the Speaker of the House in Tennessee has already said that he constitutionally has to swear them back in again.
That doesn't mean you just let them do it.
Well, I think
I don't care if they come back or not.
Yeah.
You fucking get their ass out of
it. There are parliamentary procedures that you have to follow.
You can't just seize power
you
like
can't
some fucking community organizer in Congress. Fuck those people.
There has to be accountability for that. Otherwise, you just have chaos, right?
I think they should have been censored. I think they could have been taken off of committee assignments. I think they could have been penalized in a way that would have not.
You think the penalty was too severe?
But I don't think it's too severe. I think it was.
They should have the shit kicked out of them.
I think it was I think it played into the narrative that Republicans are,
I don't care anymore. I don't care about playing. Fuck their narrative. Fuck them and fuck their fucking narrative. We're already a bunch of white supremacists anyway. It doesn't matter what we do. I can say, hello, I'm a white supremacist. I'm sick of it. You can't just seize power and take over a congressional area. Last time I checked, that was called an insurrection.
Yeah. When Republicans do it, it's an insurrection. When the Democrats do it, it's freedom of speech.
It was,
we have to be nice.
An insurrection. Yeah. What should have happened was the Republicans in the Tennessee House should have locked themselves in a room, called the police in, and then come out and give speeches how they were afraid for their lives. And
I like that.
That would have been
a good idea.
We got to start fighting with fire.
Richard, that's pretty good.
And they found weapons. You know, they don't have to produce the weapons. They found.
You're exactly right. Tendo's right. The Republican Party right now is not willing to stand up and fight with these guys toe to toe. They're just not. They're just not. Chris is right. They need to do things like what you just said, Richard. And yeah, it's kind of a humorous thing. But what if they really did do it? I mean, that would send a message, right?
That's my point. My point was what they did was stupid. They shouldn't have kicked him out only to let him be right back in, because that's what's happening. They can't keep him out of the house. And it just made them look like a bunch of like Tennessee redneck racists. And
well, what are they supposed to do? Just let them do it?
Do what I said. I think you take them off of committees. You do what happened to Marjorie Taylor Greene and the U.S. Congress.
Hey, I got an idea. Why don't I just treat them the way that the trannies treat the women, and I'll just go over and beat the fuck out of them. How about that?
They should have taken them off committee.
Beat the shit out of them.
Off committee assignments. Taken them away from any power whatsoever, and then said, "How do you like them apples?" And that's what.
All right. A little more of a softer approach probably would have been kicking them out. Definitely, that was a hard and it got attention, and now the media will report that. The media will sure as heck report that. Okay, so moving on to final thoughts and predictions. Okay, I'll kick it off. So, my final thought is Democrats suck. The hypocrisy level coming from them is just freaking unbelievable. They do suck, and they do. But here's my prediction. My prediction is that if whoever emerges out of the next Republican primary for president, anyone but Donald Trump will not win in the general election. They will not win any of the swing states that Trump got in 2016. That includes Ohio, that includes Wisconsin, that includes Michigan, that includes Pennsylvania, that includes Arizona, that includes Georgia. Whoever, if it's like DeSantis or anyone else, they will not carry a single one of those swing states. That's my prediction. And I'm moving on to you, Richard Sheffield, for final thoughts and predictions.
I predict that the Atlanta Braves are going on a losing streak. They've blown their lead tonight. I've been following the game while we're talking. No, I think we're in for a very rough next 6 years as a country. I think that during the next 6 years, not just internally, I think that we will likely be in a shooting war with China. I think that we very well could be in a shooting war of sorts with Iran.
When you say shooting war with China, will this be over China's invasion of Taiwan, which will probably happen in the next 2 years? Is that what you're talking about?
That's correct.
When you say shooting war, we'll commit at least some sort of battleship. Is that what you mean by shooting war?
I think that our Navy will be in a air combat, plane against plane, ship against ship, missiles against missiles, and I think that we're basically looking to effectively fight a new triad, if not a larger group, even if you toss North Korea into it. Where three of the four, and if not four of the four, are armed with nuclear weapons. You'll have Russia, China, North Korea, and then Iran. And I think the four of them are aligning themselves already. I think that certain countries like France who just came out this week when Macron visited China and said that France and Europe should stay out of a war over Taiwan, and that China has emerged as a world leader, and that the United States is on the downward slope. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said. And I think that there will be, that the United States is going to be finding itself increasingly isolated and facing a lot of difficult challenges.
Wow, that's quite a prediction. So we'll take up arms against China, potentially Iran and Russia. Wow, interesting. Okay, in the next 2 years, you're saying?
No, I'm saying probably in the next 2 to 4 years. Yeah.
2 to 4 years. Okay. Todd, final thoughts and predictions.
So this weekend I'm watching Mindhunter again and forgot how much. This is Netflix about the FBI's right when the serial killer was becoming a thing. If you haven't seen it, go see it. There was a special group meant to actually study the mind of the serial killer so they could get ahead.
Mindhunter is what it's called?
Mindhunter, actually. I think if you go Hunter,
I think it's filmed in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
True story. They chronicle meeting people like Ed Kemper and others. In the time, keep in mind, it was mid-'70s. So back to your point, Tim, about these cycles we've gone through. There was Carter, right? The word serial killer wasn't even used until these guys. It was an FBI unit, right? And it's now the modern day way that we catch, for example, that Idaho killer. They can, start to, okay. Well, one of the lines from the show was, when people are disgruntled, this is the way they all these acts that we're seeing is a marker of what's going on. Now, back then, it would have been more the Democrats rising up saying, we hate big government. We all know about that flip that's happened, right? They're the ones rooting for big government. Back then, they were the ones against big government. What I'm here to tell you is what's old is new again. I think we've talked about these things, and I think that we are at the end of this cycle. The markers are there. I talked about it earlier. That I don't know when it actually is, but their bet in the moral of the story is their Democratic, the George Soros-based Democratic thing of trying to tear our country down. We are resilient. They are falsifying how many people are actually behind this. And what my prediction is that we're actually going to look to the left of us and to the right of us and realize that a lot more of us are more in the middle. And it's going to take a unifying member. The Republicans are going to get smart. They're not going to run Trump. They're also going to run him out on the rail because he's just too polarizing. We could make a whole nother show on that. But the Republican dynamic about issues is resonating. The issues-based arguments of what the Democrats have done is a disaster. It's going to come to the forefront, and they are going to trust someone on the right to be the more unifier that doesn't feel like Trump and fearful, because they're going to pin the results that we have now on the Democrats, which is all true, and they're going to buy it. They're going to say, okay, I agree. I can trust this, and we are going to see a different regime. And because to Tim's point about bricks being hit in the head, there's too much bad shit. It is real, and we got to
Todd, to your point, there was a new poll released in the past few days of millennials, and there was a significant uptick in millennials thinking towards more like conservatives than liberals. So even millennials are starting to get it.
Because millennials are starting to make more money, and this happens in a cycle.
Pay more taxes, getting married, buying houses. Yep. Okay, that's a great prediction. Chris, final thoughts and predictions.
Well, hopefully Richard will be wrong about a war with China. What I'm hoping for is that China realizes that we're their best customer and they really can't afford a war against us because they have like a big restaurant. We come in, we're like the big tippers and stuff. But he could be right. We could go into a war with them. We easily could. But don't worry, Richard. Tim, don't worry. Todd. Because by the time we get into a war with them, all of our soldiers are going to look like Dylan Mulvaney. And they're going to be running around going, look, it's my gun. Look, I'm a girl. Ooh. So we don't have to worry about that or anything. Thanks, Biden administration.
So we'll win by distracting them with that.
Man, we'll win because they'll be cracking up at us.
We'll get them drunk on.
They'll be laughing so hard at the.
Yeah,
And the
we're gonna
boy
drunk
presents a girl flying a F-18 Hornet.
Oh,
Just launched off our latest aircraft carrier. Okay. Well, so concludes another exciting episode of Insanity Island. It's insane.
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Till
Hey,
next time.
hold on before we leave.
Oh, Richard has a final thought.
I take back my Braves losing streak because Murphy, our new catcher, just hit a home run, 2-run homer to win the game.
Yes.
Wow.
What's the streak now? What is it?
1.
Oh, no, but we're like, we've won. No, I mean, we've won more than we've lost.
Well, yeah, we have. We're in first place.
They're
We-
seven-
First place, yeah.
We're now 7-4.
Just saying they're on a roll of 1.
7-4. Good start. Okay, till next time we do this, and then we do it, and we
Hey
always.
guys, get out.
Oh, I dare you to shut this off. I dare you.